We are live. That's right. The WWE Draft has taken place, ladies and gentlemen, both nights 1 and 2. Who won the draft? Was it Raw or was it SmackDown? Going to give the full results here. Going to be talking about what we liked from the draft, what we didn't like from the draft, what matches and feuds we're looking forward to for the rest of 2023 as we head towards, well, now, literally, WrestleMania 40. You'd imagine that WWE have plans in place. We'd hope. Anyway, but one thing's for sure, ladies and gentlemen, it's going to be an exciting stream. I want all of you to get involved as well. Give us your thoughts, your comments, your predictions as well, what you want to see going forward, what you liked, what you didn't like from the WWE Draft. Shout out to Eric Douglas, who's already in the house, has dropped a comment nice and nice and asking how we are. We're doing very well, Eric. Thank you for checking us out. I'm joined by a regular on this channel, someone that I always have a great time talking pro wrestling with. It is the one, the only Mr. NX Steve. How are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. And I'm very excited about the possibility of what we're going to see in the next 12 months now with how these rosters have shaped up.
Absolutely, indeed there. We're going to be actually giving you, along the ticker, all the rosters for Raw and SmackDown as well during this video. But just to kick things off, if you've not seen what's going on or you want a quite little reminder, here is every television draft pick that happened in the WWE Draft 2023 from night 1 going in to night 2. So there you have it there. That is every television draft pick. Of course, there was the SmackDown Lowdown. There was Raw Talk. We've got free agents. We've got pretty much everything going on with the 2023 draft. First and foremost, before giving an answer, is it Raw or is it SmackDown? Next, Steve, what is your impressions then of the WWE Draft 2023?
I think after night 1, I was feeling a bit deflated. Like there was a couple of nice surprises in there, a couple of the NXT guys calling up. But I think night 2 kind of really set the bar, especially with things like Rhea Ripley being drafted as number 1 pick. I think it was an amazing thing to see. And some of the NXT call-ups, again, just who they've called up is a shock, but very excited to see what's going to happen going forward.
Absolutely, indeed. I mean, for me personally, obviously, I've given my full reactions in the videos I've already done for night 1 and night 2. So, obviously, I'll keep it brief here. If you want to see more detail, I recommend to go and check those videos out. But I would agree, like to a certain point, that night 2 definitely has given some real buzz there. I really felt refreshed after night 1, though. I must admit, I liked the idea of we had Roman Reigns and Bobby Lashley on the same brand at last. Edge had gone over. AJ Styles had returned. I thought, oh, that's pretty cool for SmackDown. Raw, on the other hand, I felt myself that felt like a bit of a bare show. But looking after last night, there seems to be a lot of names that have head over to Monday Night Raw. A lot of changes as well. Some big names going over to Raw. Also, it feels like that when they do this World Heavyweight Championship scenario, that it's going to be interesting to see what contenders we're going to get, how it's all going to play out. Certainly for me, I think it's going to be quite a fun scenario.
Yeah, I mean, my only worry is that a lot of the superstars that have currently moved brands, like for instance Bobby Lashley and Austin Theory, does that mean we're going to get a continuation of this Bobby Lashley Austin Theory US title scene, where I'd rather see Bobby being pushed to the main event scene, going against the likes of Roman Reigns? But like I said, we won't know. But this was the one thing I actually really did like about this: the fact that Triple H turned around and said these rosters do not come into effect until the night after Backlash. It's amazing how much common sense you can put into this, and it just works so much better for it.
Absolutely, of course, with the shows taking place this Saturday, obviously, like you said, the Backlash predictions will be on this channel tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, by the way. So, yeah, make sure to tune in tomorrow. We'll be doing it 10 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Eastern, for those that are keeping track as well. Turn notifications on, and you'll get that notification when we do go live. But like you say, there's lots that can come from Backlash. And like you said, the rosters don't take shape till then. Obviously, Friday on SmackDown, we've got some matches announced with some of the old SmackDown stars taking on each other. Of course, some of them will be still sticking around as well. Bad Bunny will also be in the house for that. So it's going to be interesting to see what's going to happen with that. And one of my nitpicks, though, early doors, I have to get a nitpick in. I'm speaking positively. I have to sort of balance it out because where I think this critique, it needs to be given. For me, the critique comes with the women's championship scenario. Obviously, we've seen Bianca Belair go to SmackDown, and we've seen Rhea Ripley drafted to Raw. And with that leads to the women's championships. Obviously, the Raw Women's Champion is now on SmackDown. The SmackDown champion is on Raw. Are we going to see the championships trade once again? We've seen it in the past with likes of Becky Lynch and Charlotte Flair, which was a very awkward segment. We've seen the tag titles with the Street Profits, and I believe the New Day was back a couple of years ago. It just isn't for me, this sort of segment. It ruins the momentum of long championship reigns. I mean, think about the fact that Bianca Belair is about to become the longest reigning Raw Women's Champion ever, and she's probably going to have to trade the championship. Seems a stupid way to end such a historic reign, in my personal opinion. I think it's time we change the title names, personally. I think of refreshed designs. I think it's time we get the WWE World Women's Championship, and we can get the Women's Universal Championship. You could even have a scenario. Look, Ronda Rousey said it a little while ago. Why is it actually defined of Women's Championship? The men don't have the men's championships. If you can come out with something, I don't know, better than I can, like a Galactic Championship or something that's going to sound pretty decent, then why not throw out some of those original names as well there to give the women something specific with those championships? Because when you see now the Intercontinental Championship and the United States Championship change brands, doesn't affect anybody, doesn't do anything for anyone. Gunther's still the champion. Theory's still the champion. There's not going to be a handshake and a change over the titles. Yes, it's going to be awkward with Bianca and Rhea. I think it's a long-term build for that. But for me personally, I'm not so keen on that championship change. What's your thoughts when it comes to that?
No, I'm exactly the same. It's as soon as you first saw Bianca Belair drafted to SmackDown, your brain instantly goes back to that awkward confrontation between Becky and Charlotte, and you're like, oh, please, for the love of God, we're not going to get this again. But you're right. What they should do is just rename them. Don't have them as brand-specific championships. It would make so much more sense. Bianca then can keep hers. Rhea can keep hers. If Rhea even walks out of Backlash with it, probably will. But, there's always a chance that she could lose it this Saturday to Zelina Vega. And then the SmackDown Championship stays on SmackDown. So, but yeah, 100%. It's such a stupid thing to do. But my other worry as well is the tag team titles. Because your tag champs are on Raw. What is the SmackDown tag team division going to do? Because they've brought in a load of tag teams. They've just brought up Pretty Deadly. Yes, boy. So love that. But what they're going to do if there's no tag team titles to fight for? So we've got to see what happens to them as well.
We do have to see what's happening with them. I mean, it's an interesting scenario. You mentioned those tag team titles there because I genuinely thought they were going to get split. I thought the opportunity was to do this past Friday on SmackDown. They didn't take it. They went with the storyline avenue of the Usos letting down the Tribal Chief again. So, of course, that awkward intention's there. Perfect for that storyline. But like you say, what about the tag team titles? I can see Sami and Kayden probably going on both shows to begin with. But I want to see then a case of, well, we defend the SmackDown titles when we're on SmackDown and defend the Raw titles when we're on Raw. And then it's just a case of scenario that a team from SmackDown wins those championships and Sami and Kayden just then remain on Raw after that.
But then there's no reason why they can't do exactly the same with the tag titles as they would do with the scenario she just did for the women's. Why don't they have World Tag Team Champions and Universal Tag Team Champions? It's a possibility. They could do it. I'll be honest with you, I think that as long as they don't go back to them black straps with the bronze plates on it, then penny farthing looking titles, I think we'll be all right. But they need to get rid of the color coding on the belts because I've always hated that look. Especially like the women's is not so bad because it's on a white strap, so it kind of made it stand out a bit. But that blue and red straps on the Universal title and them tag titles, I just always hated them.
Yeah, personally for me, I've felt exactly the same when it comes to that as well. And like you say, it is possible. They did it back in the noughties. I think it was the WWE Tag Team Champions and the World Tag Team Champions
World Tag
back in the
Team
day.
Champions, yeah.
So yeah, I mean to bring that in there, they could really do that. But let's quickly go into the chat very quickly and see what everyone's got to say. Tino's time in the house says, "What's up, guys? Well done to Tino, by the way. He's hit the 1,000 subscribers as well. His watch time's always been amazing. So Tino, welcome to the Monetized Club. You deserve it, my friend. It's great to see it there." He says, "Definitely feel that SmackDown is better." So thank you for sharing your thoughts with the roster so far. In fact, what we're going to do is we've been playing the Raw roster on the bottom. So we're going to show some love now that you've said that to the blue brand as well. So you can see what is going on with SmackDown as well for those that are not keeping score at this particular moment. But we have been asked as well from Eric, do we feel that Zayn has a chance on Saturday against Rhea Ripley? I mean, of course she has a chance. There's a mathematical two people in a match. But I mean, to give one result away early to our predictions, I do think that it's unlikely in all likelihood.
Yeah, I would say that as much as I'd love to see Zelina Vega be a women's champion at some point, Rhea Ripley's the reason why she was the number one pick on night 2. I can't see her losing that title just yet. It's way too soon after she's got it at Mania.
Absolutely, indeed. There and Eric does ask, who do you think will be the new NXT Women's Champion? That's a big question. Of course, Indi Hartwell got the call up to Monday Night Raw. She was wearing her leg in the strap as well. So I wonder how bad that injury was after
In the boot,
NXT
yeah.
last week. Yeah, it was in the boot, wasn't it? So I think she's going to relinquish the championship, and I think they're going to crown a new champion at NXT Battleground. Do you reckon someone like Roxanne Perez, Tiffany Stratton, Cora Jade? What makes the most sense for the direction for the NXT Women's Championship, in your opinion?
There's a lot of women on that roster who are probably favourite. For example, Roxanne Perez could retake it again. Cora Jade is being pushed massively. Tiffany Stratton, we know, is a massive name on the NXT brand at the minute who could possibly get a chance with it. Nikita Lyons, if Nikita Lyons makes it back as well, is another name there. There's about 4 or 5 women in that division that you can turn around and solidly go, do you know what? I can see them as the next NXT Women's Champion.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, for me personally, like you say, it's an open field there. There's so many women characters, gimmicks, and a lot of them are over. I think Roxanne Perez is a heavy favourite as she's not been called up here. It did feel a bit weird that her run ended so soon and so suddenly. But I do think that Tiffany Stratton certainly got the NXT Women's Championship in the near future. So I'm going to narrow it down to those 2 women for now, Eric. But we'll have to wait and see how it will play out. But I think Battleground will be the destination where we do find out. For those joining us just now, thank you for joining us here today. We want to know which show was better, Raw or SmackDown, after the WWE Draft 2023. Obviously, just give you a take in there. We'll give you a shout out and also we'll give you an answer as well. And we are planning to give our answer to that within the next few minutes as well. But we'll go back into the chat in the meantime. Just to get up a Tino's comments, got a few of them in, but people may not like it, but we may see 2 sets of champions or a unification match. For me personally, obviously, we see the 2 sets of champions. Yes, obviously, with the we said that with Sami and KO and the idea of the championships being the Ron Brand with the women's championships. But what is your thoughts with unification matches? Because Bama Chatter has always been someone that's been a big advocate for the old days when the brand split just started, where the champion gets to be on both shows. The idea that's the champion, it's not watered down of 2 of 1. Do you reckon that would make a better idea? Say, for example, Bianca and Rhea have the unification match, and then that one can just be on either show. They get more money, more royalty because, well, they are the champion.
I think for me, the divisions are too stacked. I think there's way too much talent to just have one title. Like, this is the problem we've been saying for ages, is that at one point there was so many women on the roster, but there was only only the main shot titles, and there was nothing for the women to do otherwise. There was no essential intercontinental or US title equivalent. So, and you just found a lot of them doing nothing half the time. Don't get me wrong, I do like the idea of one champion across 2 brands, but I just think the rosters are way too stacked to do it. I'm more for one champion on one brand, one champion on each brand, because I think depending on how WWE are going to go forward, because there is the rumor that they're planning on doing brand specific premium live events again. I think you need to keep it that way, so it needs to be a one champion on each show. Plus, yeah, like there's. Like Raw's okay because Raw's a longer show, but with SmackDown, I think like you're not going to get as much as the roster on TV if you have the same champion coming between brands.
Absolutely, Dee. Great point. And also, just to say, you mentioned about the idea potentially of single branded shows coming back. Are you a fan of that concept there?
It depends on how they do it. I mean, I think the early rumor was that they were talking about doing one every 2 weeks. And I was
Oh
like,
God.
that's way too much. Like, it was going to be, I don't even know how they'd work it, but it'd be like, for instance, you'd go into Rumble and then it'd be a Raw, then a SmackDown, then Elimination Chamber, then a Raw, then a SmackDown, then Mania. And it was just like, that's essentially you're putting one every week near enough. I think that's way too much.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't be a fan of that. I like the idea of less is more, and even if that means that the cream of the crop basically gets their shine on the POEs,
I,
that's the best way to do it. But unless you're going to do 12 shows a year, 4, 4, and 4, or maybe 13 shows a year, because Money in the Bank seems to have obviously both brands. Well, your main 5, and then after that you do what you need to do. But or you even do the Crown Jewel one 6, and then you just do 3 and 3. That could be the other way you could do it.
I mean, yeah, but I think going forward, if they want to have started having, instead of doing brand specific premium live events, I think pay-per-view should just be weekend events now. I think they should be, every one of them should be 2 nights. You've got so much talent there. WWE could make a killing on buys, because you're going to set up 2 nights in a row. You get more wrestlers on the card. The shows don't have to be as long each night. You're sticking to one pay-per-view a month, aside from when they possibly go to Saudi or something like that. I'd be more fan of it, like it being a weekend event. Every time there's a premium live event, it's a weekend event. I think it just would make more sense, and you don't have to worry about the logistics of trying to set up a premium live event every 2 weeks. It's the same premium live event. You're just there for 2 days instead of 1.
Absolutely, yeah. I can see the concept. I mean, for me, I still prefer the idea that it's just WrestleMania for the time being. And if I'm honest with you as well, I'm not against the idea of Royal Rumble becoming a 2-night show, just purely because obviously 2 Rumbles is quite heavy. But at the same time, I do feel to myself that, I don't know, I just... If it can become too much and oversaturated for me, and I think that's where I would find a bit of a disconnect. But at the same time,
but this is where the balance is, where you have to turn around and say, is a pay-per-view every week more than just a one weekend event? Do you know what I mean? So you have your 4 weekends in a month. Would you rather have essentially 3 pay-per-views in a month, or just one that's spread over 2 days?
Yeah, I mean, I do see your point of view. If it became push come to shove, I'll take your idea. But the thing is, though, I like things, I suppose, just the way they are. You may see on the bottom of the screen for you right now. I hope I've included everyone that is included in this. But it's the idea for me of the free agents. I wonder what your take was when it comes to the free agents. Obviously, Brock Lesnar being one of them. Kind of made sense to me a little bit. Almost makes sense, I guess, when Logan Paul comes in. But then you start seeing the likes of Elias, and he says he's an attraction as well. I suppose he was a few years ago. I don't see it as much now. Baron Corbin. What's your thoughts with some of these? We've even got Zion Quinn and Von Wagner from NXT being involved in this.
When after SmackDown and I saw Omos on there, I was just like, this is just a way for Vince to get Omos on every show, because Omos is Vince's greatest wrestler at the minute, and like he just wants to push him to the sky. I think for some of the others, I just think it's a case of, we don't know what we're doing with you. Essentially, you're just going to sit in like no man's land and just do nothing until we have something for you. Brock's obviously Brock, so he gets away with it. But like Mustafa Ali, Dolph Ziggler, Elias, they're essentially jobbers at this point, and it's such a shame, because Elias was doing some good stuff with Rick Boogs. You could almost see a tag team forming there. Dolph Ziggler for years has consistently been a great worker. Mustafa Ali is a great worker, but it's just a case of, it feels like it's almost like a loser's locker room, where they're just going to sit there. Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, since they killed the Hurt Business return, again, just sitting in no man's land doing nothing. Baron Corbin, for as much as they repackage this guy, nothing's taken off with him. And then Von Wagner and Zion Quinn, what I said to you the other day in text message, I said Von Wagner's done nothing of significance since the first day he come in and saved Kyle O'Reilly and got a shot at the NXT Championship. Since then, he's done essentially nothing in NXT. And with Zion Quinn, the guy looks great, looks like $1 million, but he's done nothing of significance. And that's just what it looks like by looking at that list. It's a way for Brock and Omos to get on every show, and the rest of them, they just haven't got anything for them.
Yeah, no, I can agree with a lot of that. I mean, firstly, I want to say that NXT, the call-ups from this draft to the Raw and SmackDown now, whether it's free agents or the ones that we've had, 18 talents in total. West Coast Podcast coming with a comment. Hope you're doing well, by the way. Says NXT lost some big personalities. Time to step up, kids. Totally agree with that roster. And they've got a hell of a roster as well. I'm looking forward to seeing how it starts taking shape from tonight onwards. But when you look at some of those names there, Cedric Alexander, Mustafa Ali are two that stand out for me there. Do you know, if they've got nothing for them on Raw or SmackDown, they could benefit by just going to NXT. We've seen it work for so many in the past. I think Dana Brooke could be great for it as well. I mean, obviously, you look and say to yourselves, like, we've seen Mandy Rose do it. She did an incredible job when she went down. I think Tyson Kidd did it back in the very early days of NXT. The Usos did it. Cesaro did it. Many talents did it. Yeah, exactly. And it's worked for many of them. And I don't think it's as much as a step down as people see. And obviously, we've seen Apollo Crews go down. He's now been called back up to the red brand of Raw. Jinder Mahal has done it as well. I mean, I think that's more filling up the numbers, if I'm honest. But at the same time, it does go to show that you can repackage yourself and maybe it might go better next time around.
Yeah, I mean, I suggested this a few weeks ago on a live that I don't see why NXT don't bring back the Cruiserweight Championship. I think if you made the NXT Cruiserweight Championship NXT specific, you've got a load of guys on that roster, Axiom, Ilya Dragunov. Not that they're like Dragunov shouldn't be in the main event scene, but there's so many cruiserweights in that division that the cruiserweight title could like really, really thrive in NXT, and especially if you had the likes of Mustafa Ali to it. Like there's some proper like he's a former cruiserweight champion. There's a lot of things you could do with that. Dolph's obviously been down there before, and yeah, it's Cedric Alexander again, another cruiserweight champion that could easily go back down there, and you got something to do with them all. But that would have make more sense. Send them back to NXT. Baron Corbin, I'm not being funny. You could have him go in and be your NXT champion. I think that's actually a great shout for Baron Corbin. I think it would be a great way for him to sort of restart and refresh and rebuild his character and get rid of this whole happy Corbin, sad Corbin, I don't know what I'm doing Corbin.
Absolutely. Although if you see with the reception he got in Paris this past week, I think he might be moving, to be honest. He had a great time in France there, picking up his first win in a long time to a big pop as well there. A bit of me just felt like maybe something's connecting with this, and that's why I was a bit disappointed Baron Corbin wasn't given a brand, but maybe he might be given a Heath Slater treatment back in 2016, unbranded, but actually maybe he wants one. Maybe he wants to find a home. That could be a storyline, nugget that we could have for Baron Corbin that maybe people might connect with. I think a Baron Corbin face turn is not actually so crazy as it may sound after we saw the homeless style Baron Corbin from a couple of years ago. Just a couple of other comments I'm going to throw up as well, just to go back as well. We mentioned Von Wagner a minute ago. West Coast Podcast again saying, Von Wagner makes Steve Backlund seem like the life of the party. Love that
That's
comment.
A great shout.
That is a great shout indeed there. Tino said as well, he thinks there's a possibility we might see some more on the season premiere for shows next week. I hope that it wouldn't be as immediate as that. I mean, obviously, there are some talents that haven't been called up, and we will talk about them more in depth in a couple of moments' time. But for me, I think that with 18 talents coming from NXT, a lot of people changing from Raw and SmackDown, the rosters are stacked now. I don't think that we need to make sure everyone can establish to get themselves TV time, not get where they're stuck in catering loads of people. And I think that way, then we can look at this sort of thing perhaps in 2-3 months down the line.
Let me ask you this. Is there a fear that there could be releases soon? Because I can't off the top of my head think of any talent that wasn't involved in the draft. And that would be my one fear, is that if you haven't been used in the draft, your name is liable for the chopping board. I don't think they would do it straight after a draft because it would be so dumb. But obviously they've done a hiring freeze at the minute and they're not signing any more new talent. Is that a possibility?
I mean, obviously with the Endeavour deal in place, the talk as well of the freeze, obviously, from bringing new talent in. Of course, you fear that budget cuts will come in one way or another. But obviously, I wouldn't like to put my neck out and talk about people obviously losing their work or losing their livelihood at this time. But obviously, it's something, of course, that remains in the back of your mind. You hope that won't happen. But obviously, it's something that we have to be realistic to the fact that it could happen. I mean, remember Hit Row got called up in the 2021 draft, and within a month, all of them had been released from the company. And obviously, that was a time when it was budget cuts almost at let's say it was a vicious rate, really. I think it was about 4 or 5 budget cuts within that year. So fingers crossed it doesn't go back to that level. But shout out to New Age Wrestling in the meantime. Anyway, who says just rebrand the women's titles. It's not that hard, WWE, as we suggested earlier. I think that seems to be the consensus going around. Thank you for checking out the stream, New Age Wrestling, and I hope you're doing well. We've got another question as well from New Age Wrestling saying, what matches would you like to see now the draft is done? Mine's Gunther versus Bronson Reed for the IC title. Big meat slapping meat sounds really good, and definitely one of our top topics actually for this stream. So if there's a good time then to discuss it. NXT, I mean, obviously looking at those the brands that we've seen so far, what matches are screaming out to you? Maybe I can bring up some names as well. We'll go back to the color red. In the meantime, I'll bring up the Raw roster. Is there anyone from Raw in particular you think to yourself that I want to see these matches?
I mean, yeah, Bronson Reed versus Gunther is a good shout. Obviously, Drew McIntyre is still an option there for that as well, whether they want to do that. Obviously, the Brawling Brutes have now gone over to SmackDown, so Sheamus and the Brutes have gone over there. So that obviously seems like the more obvious choice. I'm trying to see who else is on there. Bronson Reed. Anyone else that was a free agent that was on there? Odyssey Jones against Gunther. Another two big guys just slapping me. That'd be pretty good. Yeah, I mean, there's not a lot of guys that I would instantly jump out at me and go, this guy should face Gunther. Like, don't get me wrong, I want to see Cody Rhodes versus Gunther 100%. But there's like, I don't really want to see Riddle versus Gunther. If you know what I mean, I'd rather see someone else. If you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, for me, Gunther against anyone, I'm quite happy with in this draft. But like you said, Gunther versus Cody, that's one for me. Excuse me. Seth versus Gunther as well, definitely one I want to see. Both of them, Cody and Seth, going against Drew McIntyre at some point as well. Heel Drew McIntyre is definitely in the list for me. Going to the women's division, Becky versus Rhea Ripley. There seems to be no excuse but to do that now. I reckon SummerSlam could be that destination. Becky and Ronda are on the same roster now. I want to see that match. I know it's not as warm to everybody else, but still a match I'm down for seeing at some point. And obviously, we see there's quite a few factions on Raw now. I want to see the Judgment Day against Imperium.
I would like to see the Judgment Day versus Imperium as much as you. I think that's a great shout. I mean, even like I'm trying to see who else was on there that could possibly do. You can do something like that. I'm trying to think who else is on there. I did see someone a minute ago. I wasn't too sure on how they stay on SmackDown. I was going to say you got LWO, but they're on SmackDown. So, yeah, man. I mean, it makes sense to do it. It's just whether they do it. That's the problem.
Absolutely, indeed. Obviously, we talked about the Raw brand there, and obviously, it's a lot of work for me to have to keep changing the color banners every couple of seconds. But let's get the SmackDown roster up there as well, just to go through a few perhaps of the dream matches we'd like to see. I'll start this time, Steve, so you've got a couple of minutes to think about it. But obviously, we mentioned earlier on in the stream Roman Reigns versus Bobby Lashley, the Almighty versus the head of the table. We've not seen them under that reincarnations of those characters, but it was just plain old Roman Reigns, the big dog, against Bobby Lashley, the guy that was pointing at his butt back in 2019, the last time they faced off. So certainly want to see that match now done with these current characters now, especially as Bobby Lashley's been a former two-time WWE champion. We need to run back AJ Styles versus Roman Reigns, the Bloodline versus the OC in general.
About to say that, yeah.
That's a must for me. I'm looking forward to that when it comes down. Obviously, we've seen now the likes of Bianca Belair and Charlotte Flair now on the same brand for the first time as well. So that's something I personally really, really want to see. And like I said, I just want to see factions just go at it, because on SmackDown it's so much faction warfare. LWO, the Brutes, OC, Bloodline. It's all there. So yeah, for me, I'm excited about the prospect. And obviously, Grayson Waller is someone that stands out for me as well. Maybe they can go back
as well.
Go back with Grayson Waller and LA Knight. They did fun work in NXT. It would be interesting to see them do it on the main.
But imagine putting them in that US title scene with Austin Theory as well.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get some killer stuff out of that division. I'm really excited about the US title scene at the minute with the amount of talent that they've got that can be in that scenario.
It's such a fresh division for the mid-card titles, actually. I've got to say that's really fun to see in general. So for Gunther and for Austin Theory, I'm excited to see what they've got going forward there. But yeah, I mean, that's definitely some of the ones that we've mentioned there. We'll go on then to other comments we've got in the meantime. Eric Douglas here with us now says some surprise Cora, Roxanne, Carmelo Hayes, Trick Williams, and Dragunov didn't get called up. Obviously, there was some big names that didn't get called up in this draft. I was heavy in saying Braun Breaker, Roxanne Perez, the two most likely to drop their championships as well. I thought the call was coming. It didn't come. Obviously, we've had some ones that we really wanted to see. Pretty Deadly were one that was called up, which we mentioned earlier on. But I think to answer this in the best way possible, was I surprised by a few of the ones we did get? Yes. But I think it comes down to you need to find a place for certain wrestlers. Now, of course, you'll find a place for a Braun Breaker on your roster when he comes in, but you want him to come in and make an impact when he does. You don't want him to come in and kind of be like, I don't know, Ryback for the first 6 months of just squashing nobodies. Do you know what I mean? Like, you want to see him make an impact. You need the space, you need the right moment, the right time. Sometimes it's like thinking about making, I don't know, a recipe on making like your dinner or your lunch or whatever, and thinking, what actually is going to fill the plate nicely with the sides for the main that I'm making of this dish? And it's those ingredients, you put them all together to make the perfect dish. WWE probably looked and said, what's missing off a SmackDown? We need a great talker. Well, Grayson Waller's doing great work in NXT. Let's get that guy. He's modern. He does the TikTok stuff, the Instagram reels, the Grayson Waller effect. That really works. Let's bring him up. Pretty Deadly characters. They know what they're doing down to the ground. They're perfect. The women's tag team division is something I'm ecstatic about coming out of this draft. You can see the effort that's been put into it to pretty much revitalize this division now. Obviously, Alba Fyre and Isla Dawn, they've found something for those two. They've got characters as well that can fit nicely, something different on SmackDown. Obviously, with the sort of, I suppose, the Viking Raiders kind of darker gimmicks gone over to Raw as well. So they split that up. You see Katana Chance and Kayden Carter. They're on Raw. They're, you know, and just
Big
for me,
shock.
it just makes
I
me.
thought that was a massive shock, that one.
I thought it was a massive shock, especially when they meant to get the tag title shot tonight in NXT. But you look and say that those were the ingredients that WWE felt they needed. We need to improve the women's tag division. Maybe we need a great talker. Maybe we need this. Cameron Grimes has been MIA for a long time. They've given the opportunity and said, well, look, we've found a spot for this guy on SmackDown now. How about a match against Austin Theory in the next 3 or 4 weeks? You'd love to see it. So, I mean, that's, I think, why they've done what they've done with the NXT call-ups. But for me, it is a surprise to have not seen some of those names. But at the same time, when you look at the names that have been mentioned there by Eric, I mean, they've still got a lot of time on their side, providing there's no big injuries. I mean, they've got future big dreams ahead of them. Roxanne Perez only 21 years old. There's plenty of time for her to be a top star in WWE on the main roster, Raw and SmackDown, be a champion, and perhaps even main event, the women's side of the WrestleMania. Same with the men with we mentioned Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, the idea of Dragunov as well. You know, people like that. They could be big time in WWE, and they don't need that call up today.
I tell you what, I'm looking at this NXT roster now, and you know what? It seems to be very balanced now. Like, there's, don't get me wrong, there is a lot of fresh face in there, but there's essentially no carrying cross in the division. Someone who should just be champion because they're such a big name. Like, yes, you still have some big names in there, like Tyler Bate, and then obviously Wesley's been there for a while now. Even the Coffee Brothers and stuff like that. But the roster in general just seems to be balanced. And I think that's a really nice thing to see. I mean, don't get me wrong, I think we was all shocked when we didn't see the likes of Braun Breaker, Ilya Dragunov, and Tyler Bate not be called up. But they're sort of like, they're essentially top guys in NXT. And it's like apart from Braun, the other two haven't really, like, Tyler was UK champion. He's never been NXT champion. But I think that roster now is pretty nicely balanced going forward. I'm excited to see what they're going to do with it, because there is a lot of fresh talent in there, but there's also a lot of established talent that fans will recognise. Like, don't get me wrong, like next year I'm expecting the likes of Gigi Dolan and JC Jane to come up, but like I said, they're essentially now the established talent in NXT. And when they've got the likes of Kiana James, Lash Legend, Lyra Valkyrie, do you know what I mean? There's some good names in there. Like, there's a lot of development to do in there, but there's a lot of still solid talent that you're still going to tune in on Tuesday night.
Absolutely. For me, I actually NXT is growing on me again. I'm not going to lie to you. I know that it's not everybody's favorite, but for me, I'm quite a fan of the idea of what NXT is putting together. It's been a show that I think is can't miss of late.
Do you know what I think it is they're starting to book the right people as champions now. Putting the title on Carmelo Hayes, 100% the right thing to do. Wesley, I don't get me wrong, I love Wesley, but I don't know what it is. I just think him as a solo wrestler, it's not for me. Like, he's a great cruiserweight, but it almost feels like he's missing something, like a tag team partner. And then obviously your women's champion, don't get me wrong, I think Indi Hartwell deserved it, but with her being called up now, there's a fresh opportunity to put someone else there as the champion. And then I the Coffee Brothers are tag team champions. Do you know what I mean? So it just seems like they're booking the right people to be champions now.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an exciting time in NXT, and hopefully they'll continue that wave of momentum. Hopefully Sean has not lost his smile after this draft for a second time, as Road Dogg had said earlier on. But WrestleBoom in-house, hope you're doing well. Says, what's up, guys? Thank you for checking out the stream. As well to Ghost Spider as well. Says, what's up, Stephen NXT? Hope you're doing well, Ghost Spider. Thank you for checking this out. And a shout out to Daz Reynolds as well. It says, big up. What does your guest think about Seth? Obviously, Seth Rollins has been drafted to Monday Night Raw. He's staying on Raw. He's got his eyes set for the new World Heavyweight Championship. What's your thoughts of that? Is the Visionary the right choice to be that first champion in your opinion?
There's as long as it isn't Cody Rhodes. Cody Rhodes should not, for me personally, should not win a title until he faces Roman at Mania next year. Like, Cody should now seriously struggle for the next 12 months to win a championship. And his redeeming arc should be that he wins the Rumble or he wins Money in the Bank and he cashes in against Roman at Mania next year and he finally wins it. But looking at that, looking at who's on that brand and that vacant championship, you've got your Drew McIntyre. Shinsuke Nakamura is, I know Vince doesn't like him, but wouldn't be a bad shout at all to be your first ever world champion. As much as I'd love to see JD McDonagh do it, I don't think he will. But yeah, Seth Rollins is probably most likely your favorite, and I'm happy with that. Like, Seth's great, man. He's been great for years, and everyone loves him. Even like that guy is. He's almost like Austin now at this point, like where he can't be booked badly because everything he is given he can turn it into gold, and he's just that good.
Yeah, and to be fair, Seth is someone that takes whatever he's given and he makes it run. He runs with it. You can argue that he's not had like the best direction in the last 6 to 12 months since the Cody feud, but at the same time, he's remained so over with the crowd wherever he goes. Everyone else
that's what I'm saying.
Great matches, you know.
He's someone Cody came back, but even before Cody come back, like apart from losing to Roman in the Rumble, he's not been in like the title scene at all. And he's still kept himself relevant. And he's still like, whatever he's done, he's just been amazing with.
Absolutely. And I have to agree as well. I think that if he's not the champion, he certainly should be in the championship match. That's one thing I would say about Seth at this particular moment. And don't worry, Eric, I don't think that Cora or Roxanne will get cut. I would be shocked if that happened. These are two of the brightest in the future of the WWE. So I don't think you've got anything to worry about there, Eric. New Age Wrestling saying Cruiserweights, Ali, Cedric, Axiom, Dragon Lee, Dempsey, Gulak, Eddie, Thorpe, Dart, Nathan Frazier, goodness, I'm out of breath. Joe Gacy, that would not be a division for North American title if this was to come back. You can always have both, though. I get where you're coming from with that, but cruiserweights can go for other championships as well on that there. But that's just our personal take on that.
I think Joe Gacy is a little over 205 as well. But no, but that's what I mean. There is still some great talent in there, and it just gives some of the other guys something to do. And like, I'm not being funny. When 205 was on, 205 was putting out some stellar matches. And the guys that went out there, they knew that they weren't getting the reaping the benefits that they should have been. And they were smashing. When you had Buddy Murphy on there and him and Mustafa Ali, oh man, just absolutely tore the house down, those two every week. But like I said, I'm all for reintroducing that title. I think it would give a lot more people, like for instance Wesley. I think Wesley as a cruiserweight champion, I think makes a lot more sense for me than he does as a North American champion. Not to discredit him, but I think if he can put on killer cruiserweight matches, it would add so much more to him.
That's fair. I mean, for me, I'm happy with him as North American champion. I think that he's had a good reign for myself personally. I do think that they're establishing him now as one of the top talents in NXT. Shawn Michaels has booked him where, no matter what Wesley does, he's winning matches. So I've got no problem with him as the North American champion. I think the person that beats him will get over in the process as well. I do worry, though, if he was called up at the moment to Raw and SmackDown, how that would have gone. I don't think the time was right. They were right to delay that for this particular time, but maybe next year could be the right year because Wesley has got some stuff in his arsenal. But I'm also a bit of a sucker for, the Impact fan in me remembers the Rascals with, Mackenzie Mitchell backstage. So I want to see Wesley and Mackenzie backstage. I think that's always a heartwarming moment because you can see there's a genuine friendship with them too. So for me, I'm down with Wesley. But at the same time, though, you mentioned the Cruiserweight Championship. I would be down for it coming back. I mean, we've even discussed this before about it going across all three brands, the idea of what the women's tag titles originally was meant to do, because in that way you've got all the cruiserweights cruiserweights. People get exposure, get to switch shows. You know, it just has its way of doing what it does best. But I mean, that's how we feel currently with the cruiserweight championship. But is there anything you'd like to add before we go to our next comment?
No, I mean, I was just going to add to about Wesley, like his latest defense in that 5-way match against who was it, Axiom and Dragon Lee. Fantastic, absolute killer match. I mean, so not discrediting his work, and he's had a great run as NXT champion. It's just like I said, for me personally, when Nash Carter was let go, I just feel like a little bit of him left, but he's done really well to keep himself going, because it's the hardest thing when you're part of a tag team to then go solo, and he's done really well since.
He has, and they've told that story well over the last sort of 12 months as well. So credit as well where it goes to all round really when it comes to that. It's been pretty well done.
I was just going to say, at one point, the pair of them and Riddle were on a journey, and it was the funniest thing going. But it's just one of them things, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's a shame that story. I don't think it finished properly when that was going. But Ghost Spider 2003 says, I'd love to see Austin Theory versus LA Knight for the United States Championship at Money in the Bank or SummerSlam. Just to basically sum up, so would I. I'd like the idea. I mean, that's the idea. If LA Knight was to go babyface now, I think New Age Wrestling has said I'd like to see that match as well there. But for me personally, I think that this would be awesome.
I think LA Knight is on the wrong show. I think he should have gone to Raw. I think being on SmackDown is really going to limit him and what he can do, because from the reports we were getting, he was going to be pushed as a top guy. And if Roman's your champion, it's going to be really hard for him to be pushed as a top guy. And I think he should have gone to Raw, and it would have made much more sense. Like he's got that natural ability to progress to a main event scene. He's got mic skills. He's got in-ring skills. So, me personally, I think he's on the wrong show, but I reckon he'll still do well on SmackDown.
He'll still do well. I mean, I think the thing is, as you said there, and this is where I would agree with you and also agree with the comment, I think the United States Championship is currently his ceiling. That's where he's at the moment. That's where he can get to in the next 12 months. But at the same time, I agree with you. I mean, every video that I did, I said LA Knight should go to Raw. And even I'll give a little bit away for those who have not seen that full-length video that I've done from earlier today, of giving my reaction to Night 2. I said the same about LA Knight. Him and Karrion Kross were the two I was disappointed of where they landed on, particularly of everybody. But I do hope as well, though, because Raw has got so many people on their roster that now that actually there's a space for them when they're not doing the gang warfare, because factions are going to have a segment on the show. They shouldn't take over the entire show. LA Knight hopefully is still talented enough that he can shine through.
Yeah, for me, it was just a whole thing about time frame, because obviously SmackDown is the shorter show. You need to, LA Knight, if he's going to do something, he needs to do a promo, because it's one of his best features. He knows how to talk, and it's like you need to get this guy on a microphone. And just because SmackDown being so short on time, it just doesn't make sense for me. Plus, you then put him on the same brand as Roman. Don't get me wrong, next 12 months, it's probably not going to matter. Going forward, it should be fine, but I was hoping that he'd be pushed more towards that main event scene in the next 12 months. It's probably not going to happen now.
No, we'll have to wait and see. As I said myself, I agree with you there. And I think US title is probably where it goes, unless, and this is the big unless, LA Knight, that rumor is true that he is going to win Money in the Bank, because then I'm assuming, again, take the word assuming to be key here, that you probably could go for any championship. You probably could cash in on the other champion. If you win the Royal Rumble, you can go for the other champion. That's probably the window to get LA Knight there. If they're going to give him a push, they need to start doing it now. He got a win on SmackDown last week. I'd be interested to see where to take him from here. You
could probably cash in on the US champion as well.
After last year, that's exactly what happened.
They better not do that. That's what they've got to try and avoid that now going forward. The next cash-in's got to be successful.
And it's got to matter as well. He's got to be on a world champion as well. New Age Wrestling says, don't hate me, but Maximum Male Models versus Pretty Deadly wouldn't be against it. They're just on opposite shows now.
I love Pretty Deadly. They are going to tear it up. They are going to be the best. But they need a tag team title on that show. There isn't one.
Give it time.
I need a side plate check, all right? I need a side plate check.
To be fair, I think Pretty Deadly. I was thinking at the time, maybe Raw would have been the right place, but as it's been said, they're Maximum Male Models. Unless you're going to kick the other members out of the group and Pretty Deadly take over it with Maxine, I think that they've done the right move putting them on SmackDown. These two, for me, they just know their gimmick inside and out. They're fun. They The thing that I like as well was when they lost the NXT Tag Team Championships, they had like a rough look the next week on NXT. Their hair wasn't done. They looked dirty. They then washed for 3 or 4 days. They just know how to play it. They stand out. They know what they're doing characteristic-wise. They're not just the same thing that you see each and every week. They can actually be dynamic with what they do. They're great fun in ring. They're a good tag team. And what I like with their last rivalry they had with Tony D'Angelo and Channing Stacks Lorenzo before they were swimming with the fishes, I like the fact that they brought out an aggressive side. The thing that I thought they were missing. They remind me, not the Brood side, obviously, but take Edge and Christian when they first started the goofy stuff, the 5-second photography, had all the hats and all that stuff on. That they remind me of that. And I think if that for me, I think is a high praise to give to a tag team. If they can get anywhere close to Edge and Christian, they're going to do pretty well on the main roster.
But there's so many elements you can take from other teams. Like their characters remind me very much of Fandango and Tyler Breeze as their tag team. Like when they were doing that whole NCIS CSI stuff, like I can picture them doing it and it being absolutely amazing. But this Maximum Male Models gets pretty deadly. It's probably going to be the starting feud, and I'm all for it, man, because let's be honest, as much as irritating as Maximum Male Models are, they are funny. And this is going to be a fun part of SmackDown, is having these 4 wrestle each other, or just even do, as long as they don't do something stupid like a fashion walk or something like that. It just needs to be backstage skits and wrestling. That's what I want to see from this, but I reckon it'd be great.
It would be great that that happened. To be fair, the fashion skit probably would be quite funny. To be fair, look, I'm happy to sit on the hill on my own on that one. I think it'd be quite entertaining. But there you have it. But JD McDonagh is finally on Raw, and I want to see him join the Judgment Day, says Ghost Spider 2003. I mean, to be fair, the guy is creepy. I think I say this every time now. JD McDonagh's name is mentioned. The guy is creepy. I really thought he would be on the same brand as Karrion Kross. When I saw him was got the call up to Raw, I was like, I think Kross is going to Raw. They both need a haircut. They both would fit together as a team. It just would naturally fit, but it's not to happen. But I wonder how JD McDonagh is going to fare on the main roster. Would he? Maybe the right thing for him is to join a group. Maybe Judgment Day is the right fit.
Don't get me wrong. JD McDonagh versus he's on Raw, isn't he? He's on Raw. Yeah, JD McDonagh versus Gunther will be an absolute killer match. I would love to see that. That's going to be fantastic. But yeah, he's he's never been since he's been with WWE. I can't remember him actually winning anything. I don't think he's won a title yet, and I think that's criminal. He's so good.
Because he won the Cruiserweight title. That's it. Only Cruiserweight title.
That's right, yeah, because then he lost it. They did the unification with Carmelo Hayes, didn't they? And it was like, there you go. So, yeah, he's won something. And he was great as a Cruiserweight champion. And then they did that stupid promo where he'd been like, oh, I'll be back to get it off of you. And then they completely got rid of the Cruiserweight championship, which was stupid. But, I think he's great, man. I can't wait to see what he does. Like, he's right. He's an absolute creep. But, like, there's even the rivalry with Finn Balor that they can relive from when Balor came, when they did NXT TakeOver Blackpool. And Balor was his mystery opponent because he did JD had injured whoever his opponent was supposed to be, and Balor was the replacement. So there's already a story there that they can re-go to as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what he can do.
Do you know, I didn't really take into account the idea, and I think obviously you mentioned there Finn Balor and JD McDonagh's history. I imagine Ghost Spider's probably alluding to that as well, probably in the comment there. Completely slipped my mind. I think actually that's a really good fit, and maybe it's something we may see happen. So yeah, I think that's a credit to those points. They did not take into consideration. Fantastic. Let's see how JD McDonagh does when it comes to being on Monday Night Raw. Wanted Candice to get the call up, and then against the Braun Brutes would have been epic. Certainly would be. That would have been a good tag team match, the Brutes against Candice. Shame that that's not happened today. But as NXT said, you said that they're the right champions for NXT right now. Who knows in 12 months' time?
Yeah, I think it'd be too much to take the tag team champs off of NXT as well, because we've already had the women's champ and the women's tag team champs. You can't take the men's tag team champs as well. That division is already, to be fair, the NXT division, tag team division, and for the men's side, it's not stacked, but it's not thin either. Do you know what I mean? It's kind of, there may be one or two tag teams short from having a decent division, but yeah, you couldn't have taken the Gallus boys on top of there.
It would almost been like WCW in the year 2000 when had to reset all the champions if they'd have called everybody up. So, yeah, I think that, like you said, they couldn't do that at that point, but it would be interesting. I'll tell you what, because of the fact that we didn't have as many people watching earlier when I asked this question, now we seem to have more in the stream. So thank you everyone that's watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. Now is that time. I want to just ask the question, Raw or SmackDown? Who won the WWE Draft in 2023? You've seen the rosters come at the bottom of the screen. We've been talking about them now for nearly 50 minutes. Who won? Is it Raw or SmackDown? We'll put a vote to it. We'll give our take on it as well, and then we'll see overall what everyone says. Is it Raw or is it SmackDown? We'll answer it in the next few minutes as we go through the next few comments. But Ghost Spider says that my opinion, Seth Rollins is the top babyface on Raw. I personally agree, judging after what we've seen here, along with Cody Rhodes, though many would argue Cody would be. But I'm almost with you, Eric, Steve. I feel Cody needs to finish that story with Roman. Although I can see him being the champion, I feel that the people right now want it to be Seth.
Yeah, I think Seth's just even the thing with people singing his song. He's one of them favorites at the minute where like people just want him to be champion. And don't get me wrong, like I said, he's great and he deserves to be. Like, it's been a long time since we've seen him with a world title. So I think if anyone, as long as, like I said, if it ain't Cody, Seth is number one pick for me. Like, he should win it. He deserves it. Like, he's the only guy to, like, do you know what I mean, rattle Roman in such a way that you almost feel like he should have won it back at the Rumble. So yeah, I think Seth's gonna. I said like, and Seth's a Triple H guy as well, so it almost makes sense that he's going to be the guy to win the first ever World Championship.
I hope so. I really, really do. Purely because as well, I've had my critique with it the last time we were online here, and I said that it's like the Consolation Championship, but Seth is the one guy that didn't get beaten by Roman. It's a way of saying, well, it's not a consolation if the guy that Roman couldn't beat is holding that championship, even if it's for a few months. It gets the championship off on the right notes. Because if it's, I mean, I said Drew would be a great shout, but if it's Drew, I mean, after Clash of the Castle, you know, I know that Drew looked like he could have won it until Roman got someone to help him do it. It's Solo Sikoa, but at the same time, it just feels to me Seth is that right candidate right now.
You might find Drew's a possibility just for the sheer fact that obviously there's this whole talk of his contract situation at the minute and how he's not happy with how his creative's being booked. Brand new title, is Drew being champion a bad thing? No, I think it's like he's still owed that win in front of a crowd, to be fair. So it's a possibility.
Absolutely, certainly is a possibility indeed there. We've got New Age Wrestling. If Wesley was to get called up to pair him with Ricochet as a tag team, fun suggestion, two high flies. That would be a great shout indeed there. Ghost
do you know what I've just noticed? Cool. I was just going to say, do you know what I've noticed? Do you know the NXT Women's Champion of Tag Team Champions have been called up to SmackDown? So now technically Raw and SmackDown have Women's Tag Team Champions.
Technically, you're right. I wonder how that would play out. For me, I'd hope they don't do that, though, because I'll give praise earlier on this video. We finally have a tag team division. To have two sets of championships now with 3 teams on each brand would just ruin it. It wouldn't be a good thing. Yeah. So, yeah. And I've got to say as well, with Indi being called up, I really hope we get the way as well. I think that would be a great way to add to that women's tag team division.
I was going to say about that. I was very shocked that Dexter and Candice and
Johnny
Indi called up on night one, and I think it was on the SmackDown lowdown, wasn't it? That they all got announced, wasn't it?
Apart from
she got picked
on the main show.
Yeah, I was very shocked that I suppose if they're going to do the way again, I'm all for that. I was very shocked that the way they had them all split up, for instance, because Dexter's been doing a lot of stuff with Johnny, but yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, it's cool how it's done. Just to say, we've had it up on the screen for a while now. It must be a good feeling, Steve. You were right. LA Knight is on the wrong show. He should be on Raw. And I think, yeah, that seems to be a consensus there. Our first answer, by the way, of which show is better. Main event scene, Raw for Catty Cat. And the mid-card is SmackDown. Thank you for checking the stream. Hope you're doing well. Catty Cat, a fairly new regular viewer here on the channel as well. So thank you for stopping in on the live stream as well. Hope you are doing well. We've got Ghost Spine here says, if Big E returns, then I want to see the New Day versus Imperium feud. As would I. I'd like that as well.
That'd be a great feud. Yeah, I'd just say, hopefully, if Big E can come back, I'd be up for seeing that.
I would be as well. It would be a pretty nice shout indeed there. Congratulations to Carmella and to Corey Graves. Absolutely, Eric. We share the sentiments as well. They're fantastic news that they are expecting a little one on the way, due in November. Very happy for them. Obviously, Carmella, that's one of the reasons she wasn't a part of the WWE draft. And obviously, will probably not be in the ring for some time. But obviously, they've gone through a lot. And it's great to see that obviously now they have something to celebrate. And yeah, extremely happy for them.
Oh, and congratulations to Gunther and Ginny who got married today as well.
Absolutely, yes, fantastic stuff indeed. And got to
There
say,
you go.
the dancing that was online as well. We've gone to dancing at the wedding there. Absolutely superb. If anyone's on the Twitter app, make sure they go and check that out. I do worry though that a dancing gimmick maybe in Gunther's latter days of WWE after that, if Vince has anything to say about it. But hopefully Triple H can stand firm on it. But Ghost Spider says that Shinsuke Nakamura should be the one to dethrone Gunther for the Intercontinental Championship. I've got to say very quickly, Shinsuke Nakamura to Raw feels like a real sleeper pick to me because it feels almost a little bit that people would say maybe he won't do much on Raw, but I just feel he feels refreshed, repackaged, and just feels I just feel a sense of like this is the most serious I've seen Nakamura for about 5 years in WWE. I want to see him do good things again.
Yeah, but my problem is they've put him with the Miz again. And I'm pretty sure we just come off this when he was Intercontinental Champion when we had these two feuded. It just feels like it's being rehashed from like 2-3 years ago. I think if they keep him away from Miz, don't be wrong, it's a great thing to do. Taking that title off of Gunther is actually probably the best thing you could do for Shinsuke Nakamura because it would do a lot to build his credibility again.
It would add to it, absolutely. I would agree it would add to it. But the thing is, though, Gunther now, he's on that run, isn't he, to become the longest reigning IC champion. Probably would be a little while.
I reckon he's going to beat it, yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry, Honky Tonk. It's going to end soon. Ghostfire says, I'm still mad that Drew McIntyre lost at Clash at the Castle. I can understand that.
Both.
Yeah, there's a few that would agree. Also, Eric Douglas says, I think main event since NXT mid-card SmackDown. So big NXT fan is our Eric mid-card for SmackDown there for the vote. We're going to give our vote in a couple of moments' time there. Oscar to SmackDown is the right move. She's been on Raw for 4 years. It's been that long, Noob. It's been that long since Oscar has been on SmackDown.
See, Noob says that, but I've just had a look. I was looking at the roster and there's so many females on that roster that Asuka just feels a bit lost, if I'm honest. Like you've got Bayley, Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, and it just feels like those three are your top three, and it just feels like Asuka's not. For me personally, I don't think Asuka's going to get a shout in with them three, especially with Charlotte. I mean, don't get me wrong, Asuka still owes Charlotte I'm pretty sure she still needs to pick up a win over Charlotte, but I just think with them three, I don't think Asuka's going to get a shot.
That was one of my concerns. It's one of the names I talked about in my reaction video earlier. But the one thing I said on a positive note on it is that Io Sky is also on SmackDown. There is a possibility we're going to get that match in the next 12 months. So my main disappointment with it is the fact that I've seen Oscar versus Bayley, I've seen Oscar versus Charlotte, I've seen Oscar versus Bianca Belair. On Raw, felt like the matches that I'd not seen as much of, or there was more fresher talent to work with. I still want to see Oscar versus Ronda Rousey. I know Ronda's not everyone's cup of tea, but the thing is that there's still matches there that you can make some money off, and Oscar versus Ronda is one of them. But at the same time, it's not to be for a while. But I mean, hopefully, we know what we're getting with Oscar. It's always great performances. It's always, great in-ring talent. Those matches are always bangers when we mention those people she's faced before. So fingers crossed, it is a good thing for her. Noob is happy with the shout, which is for me as a Noob is a big Oscar fan. Really happy for Noob on that. So fingers crossed it does work out for Oscar.
It almost felt like they were packaging Io as a separate act this week on Raw. Like she had a video package just for her. And then obviously Damage Control was Bayley and Dakota. So is that supposed to be the split where Bayley and Dakota stay together and Io goes separate? I don't know. That's what I got from Raw.
I think that it's coming. I think the Damage Control breakup has been coming for a little while. First win Bayley's picked up in a while on Raw this past week. Obviously, she's been running the pins as well. So I think it's coming. It's just a matter of when, not if, on that one. But it's interesting. Bayley and Dakota going for the tag team titles certainly freshens things up for that division as well, just for the short term. But I see a Damage Control triple threat match happening. by SummerSlam at the latest. But yeah, hopefully before, because it's definitely being teased now. We've got C Nation says, what if Vince McMahon saw Gunther's dancing video and said, he's a good dancer, let's put that on TV, pal.
Oh, God,
Certainly
no.
he could be the Vladimir Kozlov of 2023. I don't want to see it personally, but let's hope it
Please,
doesn't
C
happen.
Nation, don't manifest that in my brain, because it probably will end up happening there.
Oh dear. Ghostfather says, I was very surprised that Indus, Odyssey Jones, Zion Queen got called up to the main roster in the WWE draft, as was I. There three of the shouts that surprised me. But I will say, as well as I said earlier on the video, it's finding the right recipe to complete ideally, like if you're making a meal, sometimes you think, what's going to make this perfect? Those ingredients fit this right, and I think that's what WWE are looking for. Rather than going, these are the people that are ready. What can we put into our show that's something different and stands out?
Do you know what? That Odyssey Jones call up almost makes it feel like he's meant to be like a Big E substitute for a feud coming up. If Big E's not cleared, if you throw Odyssey Jones in there as the Big E replacement, that could probably work for the time being. Because then, I don't know, if Big E then does come back or not, you've got someone who's essentially perfect for the role. I don't know how it would work, but I don't know.
It'd be interesting to see how it would go down. For me, I mean, obviously, Odyssey Jones is someone that's sort of like, he's got a lot of charisma. He was very popular in the Performance Center. It felt with when you see, I mean, I don't really watch Level Up, I'll be honest with you. When you saw our performances,
Also injured a lot.
Yeah, also injured a lot. You are right with that. But, he always seemed to be very popular with a lot of people. And it felt like he was going to be a big deal with NXT 2.0, but didn't quite work out. But on the flip side, obviously, we mentioned Von Wagner add to this list as well earlier on. And it's like you say to yourself, well, hang on, some of these names weren't the ones that got over, but with some old NXT call-ups going back to Vince days, do you remember like all our favorites used to get called up and they didn't do very well, but then someone like Elias who did nothing in NXT got called up and then did really, really well. Alexa Bliss didn't do much in NXT. There was a 5-time women's champion. Is there a possibility that one of these will just do much better because they're much suited for a Raw and SmackDown audience rather than an NXT audience?
I mean, looking at them all, if you were going to pick one, it's probably Zion Quinn or Von Wagner. Yeah, Von Wagner's probably the prime suspect for that to happen to, because he literally has done nothing of relevance. He hasn't picked up a big win in any way. Like he hasn't done anything of significance since his first day in NXT. So yeah, him or say Zion, or it's Wagner, Zion Quinn, or Odyssey Jones, because all three of them have done nothing of relevancy in NXT, and you can just see Zion Quinn's he's a body guy. Do you know what I mean? And like Vince loves a 6'4" guy that looks like he's jacked. Do you know what I mean? So he screams Vince McMahon all over. But then, like I said, Von Wagner, he just seems to be one of them guys that's just pushed to the moon. He's almost like feels like an Omos in some ways, and I reckon you could probably see that happening with him going forward over the next 12 months.
I could as well. I think Von Wagner, the way to help him is put him in a group. We talk about factions becoming a thing in WWE again now. It would be good to be the muscle for somebody. So he's not tall, you just got to do the action. In ring, he's fine. He just needs a bit of direction. And Robert Stone is been helping.
He almost feels like a Jake Hager out of JAS.
It's a great shout there. I wonder if he likes his hat. But yeah, at the same time, I know exactly where you're coming from with that. At least with Zion Quinn as well, he's not bad at karaoke. He was singing Shawn Michaels' theme, wasn't he, back in the day? Sean's writing the show. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how it will play out there for us there. But we're going to be answering the question, Raw or SmackDown, who won the draft in a couple of moments' time. Just going to do 2 more comments, and then, Steve, we're going to do it, even if some of the comments are not in yet. It looks like WWE's putting effort in the women's tag team division for the first time in years, but I feel bad for NXT. They have no tag teams left. I can't think of many women's tag teams left. Obviously, they broke up Kiana James and Fallon Henley as well. So, yeah, CNation's got a good point there that the women's tag team division in NXT has been gutted. But, I mean, it's good to see that WWE at least putting effort in that tag team division now.
Yeah, we've been screaming out for it for ages. So, yeah, it's about time they finally did something with it. My only worry is that they call them up and they do nothing. Yeah. It's the biggest fear with this division, and do you know what I mean? We'll kind of see within the next, I don't know, give it to say SummerSlam. You'll probably see what happens with that division, whether it's going to have any relevancy on the main roster.
The reason I think it will, and here's my little early prediction for it of some of the things we'll see in 2023. Ronda and Shayna are going to be your next tag team champions, and I think once they have those tag team championships, they will do what they can to please Ronda Rousey, and that's why I think all them teams are there. That's my early prediction with it. And Sinesh just said full Katana Chance and Kayden Carter were 99% going to win those tag team titles tonight, but now they got drafted to Raw. The match is very unpredictable. It almost feels like, what's the point of it? Because whoever wins is taking championships away. It would make most sense for me for Isla Dawn and Alba Fyre to retain, and then they'd just be stripped of the titles. Because Solo Sikoa was stripped of the North American title because of the fact that he was called up to the main roster, and you couldn't have a title on SmackDown that was taken away from NXT. So I think that could be the best way they could do it. Just to say, by the way, about Dancing Gunter, Sinesh just says my bad. So just so we got there. But I tell you, we're gonna just leave the comments for a couple of seconds and feel free to throw in your own, because now it's time to generally answer the question. We've been going through the brands now for about an hour, Steve. So the question is, I mean, who won the WWE draft in your opinion? Is it Raw or is it SmackDown?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I've been scrolling through these two rosters for the last 10 minutes trying to work it out in my brain. And I'm like, oh, yeah, but SmackDown have got LA Knight. And it's like, yeah, but Raw's got Judgment Day. And it's like, oh, yeah, but SmackDown's got, I don't know, OC. Do you know what I mean? These have been split so well. I think I'm going to base it on a case of who I like watching more, that entertains me more. And I'm probably going to have to say SmackDown. I think LA Knight being on there alone is one of the big draws for me, but you've got such great characters like Sheamus as well. You've got Pretty Deadly on there, who are entertaining as anything. Cameron Grimes, given the right story, can be entertaining. Grayson Waller is entertaining. Not to say there isn't entertaining people on Raw, because don't get me wrong, SmackDown isn't got a world champion on TV every week, and their women's division is kind of a bit not balanced enough for me. But there's a lot more entertaining. There's a lot more people on SmackDown I really would rather watch from an entertainment point of view. But then again, Raw has loads of great wrestlers. You look at it, it's got Gunther, it's got Drew McIntyre, it's got Cody Rhodes, it's got Becky Lynch. You can't go wrong with that roster from a wrestling point of view. It's really, really hard to call. But I'm for the sake of having to pick one, I'm going to say SmackDown.
The thing is, like, you made some great arguments there. I thought in my head, oh, this is quite straightforward. I made my mind up before I came on the stream. But as now you start talking, I'm like, oh, he's got some good points. You know, I mean, the thing is, I look at Raw and I'm like, I got what I wanted at the end of this. I got Cody, Seth, Gunther, and Drew all on the same show, and I feel they're going to be the top four guys. I think when Brock comes in, when Logan Paul comes in, when Omos comes in, they've got their main event scene sorted. Sami and KO are still flirting around when they're not tag team champions as well. That's a stacked top end of the card. The mid card looks quite good as well. Like you said, we've got Judgment Day, we've got Imperium as well. Gunther's my favorite to watch at the minute, so that makes you feel like that could be a good brand. But SmackDown was my choice because, I mean, you've got Roman, and Roman's got fresh opponents on there. AJ Styles is like my favorite of the last sort of 5 to 10 years at least. It's just great to see the idea of the OC being back on there. We've got the Bloodline. That excites me. I like the idea of like I said, Bobby Lashley being on there as an opponent for Roman Reigns. I look at the women's division. Obviously, the idea of that Bayley's going to be harassing Michael Cole every week. You mentioned LA Knight, Pretty Deadly.
Can't wait for
there's such great characters on SmackDown. And look, the nostalgia of me, I know they're not winning matches, but the LWO is quite fun for me as well. Like, Edge is there as well. I mean, Edge was part of SmackDown for so long. Bianca Belair, for me, is the top female right now. I want to see the match with Charlotte Flair. Austin Theory as well, so it's going to get to that next level. And like you said, there's just some NXT call-ups in there. Grayson Waller could be a great shout for in time to come. I mean, Isla Dawn, for me, I thought, has done some amazing work on NXT. So I'm going to give the edge to SmackDown. SmackDown is my choice. But I do think that for the first time in many years, I think that, like you said, that this is almost an even split on how good it is. In fact, the only thing that I think might pip this, that Raw might be better than SmackDown, is that even the announcers have changed over. We've got Samantha now on Raw because, of course, she's with Ricochet, who's now been drafted to Raw, and Mike Rome has been moved to SmackDown. So we are still going to get Samantha Irvin to do the ring entrance for Gunther, which, let's be fair, is a win-win for everybody.
Absolutely. That is the best thing you've heard all day. That is the best news you could have told me. I'm so happy about that, man, because no one smashes the introductions at the park like Samantha does, man. I cannot wait to see her on Raw. That's going to be amazing.
Absolutely, yeah, it's going to be awesome indeed. So yeah, I mean, to be fair, we're picking SmackDown. But to be fair, I think Raw could be the most interesting in way with this World Heavyweight title going into Crown Jewel, but or Night of Champions now they're calling, aren't they? So yeah, be interesting to see how it's going to play out. But C Nation says Bailey team with Dakota Kai has kind of downgraded Bailey. She's supposed to be the leader of the faction, not in the tag team. Well, I mean, I think it's just the storyline that Bailey keeps letting the faction down. So I think this is the reason why she's now proving to her teammate that, look, I'm a team player and I can do this. While EO, of course, has proven, well, hang on, you've been holding me back, and that's why she's got the championship opportunity. I think the breakup is coming, and I think that all of them are going to kind of let themselves down here. And I think it's going to lead to just everyone going their own way.
My worry is for Dakota in that scenario because Bailey's been there, done it. EO has a feud waiting with Asuka if it happens, but what does Dakota do? Because she, without trying to be horrible, but she's always done better when she's paired with someone. When she was with Raquel in NXT, she did some fantastic stuff. So that's just my worry creatively where they go forward with Dakota, because she can wrestle, she's great, but I just worry about the long term.
I mean, Eric Douglas has the same fears as you do here. I don't think she'll be okay, but I understand everyone's concerns.
Yeah.
Let's leave it at that for the time being. If someone is going to be, I could see why, but she's a heck of a talent. She does deserve to not be lost in the shuffle. Odyssey Jones isn't ready in C Nation's opinion. I can understand that. Obviously, he's not been NXT champion, he's not been heavily pushed as of late, but it can come to a point as well with some of these talents. They've been in NXT for a while, and they probably get to a point where they say, well, look, they've been in here in the Performance Center for so long, it's time to call them up and let's see if they sink or swim. And it could be a case of that Odyssey Jones. We may find out in 3 to 6 months if he does actually succeed or not.
I tell you what, just looking at these rosters again, do you know what draft pick I'm really surprised about is Trish Stratus.
I love it.
Don't get me wrong, I love it as well, but I was not expecting long-term planning for Trish. I was expecting this feud with Bailey to end up Backlash and with Becky to end up Backlash, and then she'd disappear again. So I think that's a really big thing for Trish to be drafted and for her to be on Raw going forward. I think that's great.
It is. It implies she's here for the long term, and that's exciting because she's arguably the best of all time. Arguably, if you go through the fact that she's been through multiple different eras, she's always been talented, whatever era she's been in. She's been 7-time women's champion as well, which at that time was unprecedented before we had a Charlotte Flair come into the picture. So, I mean, arguably, yeah, I mean, it's amazing for that division. Of course, whoever Trish does face, it usually gets headlines. So, I mean, now obviously Becky Lynch is the current one. And yeah, I agree with you. It does imply that she could be here for the long term.
But even Lita hasn't been drafted. Do you know what I mean? So there's a lot of emphasis there to say that she's going to be sticking around for the next 12 months.
Absolutely, I have to agree there. Hopefully, it's not a Gable Stevenson situation, but certainly feels that Trish should be sticking around in the short term at least. But yeah, exactly. I think it's Damon Kemp's brother. But Ghost Spider 2003 says Gunther versus Seth Freakin Rollins. Absolutely cannot wait. We've got to see it at some point. Would love to see it. But C Nation here with a take on almost being a free agent kind of makes him a bigger deal because he is with Brock Lesnar now, a free agent. Smart thinking with WWE. I agree with it if it was just them. But then when you've got Zion Quinn, Von Wagner, Elias, Shelton Benjamin, Cedric Alexander, it takes the shine off of the idea of the free agent. But for me, I'm a sticker for the free agent because of the fact that I believe that if it ruins the idea of the draft, if someone's meant to be on Raw and someone's meant to be on SmackDown, and all of a sudden you have someone that can be on both shows, it's like, what's the point? But with Omos, I do agree with C Nation. He is an attraction, and they're using him for that reason.
I wouldn't be surprised if you actually see some of them free agents go back to NXT. I reckon some of them will probably end up going back down and doing something else. But otherwise, a lot of them are just going to be jobbers and fillers for a lot of stuff, really. Like, these are the kind of guys that you're probably going to see in things like the Andre the Giant Battle Memorial, Royal Memorial, whatever, you know what I mean? But yeah, unfortunately, it's just one of them scenarios. But hopefully, like I said, it's just a case of hopefully they find something for them to do.
Absolutely, that's the key. I think Omos and Brock will be fine. They've got big matches for them, and I guess they probably think, well, we have a handful of matches we can put Omos in, but involves him needing to be on both shows.
They were a match at WrestleMania, How can two guys that were at WrestleMania have a match with each other have both gone as free agents? That's just, I'm sorry, that's just dumb in my opinion. Like, these guys should be on a brand. Then again, my feelings towards Omos, like Omos just needs to do what he was doing before when he was like talking crap in the ring and just giving it big, man. And, like, that was really entertaining stuff. They just need to let him speak again, but I don't know.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, especially with I'd like to see him do his actual character. That would be his actual personality. You know, he's been on TV, he had a real nice breakout moment with that, so it'd be good to see that on our TV screens. Ghostbusters says WrestleMania 40. I'm not sure why now. We were talking about something earlier that would have related to that. Ghost Spider, please clarify for us. Von Wagner was on a winning streak. Now he's on a losing streak. C Nation, you are right. Will he go on a winning streak now on the main roster? I'm not sure. Sorry, throat's starting to tickle now. Von Wagner should have a manager who isn't goofy. That's the reason why he didn't work with Mr. Stone, because he was too goofy. Is Mr. Stone called up to Raw or SmackDown? We'll have to wait and see if he'll be a part of the free agency as well.
Sorry, I was thinking, is Otis been drafted separately from Maximum Male Models? Models are on
separately, but they're all on Raw.
I thought Chad Gable and Otis had gone to SmackDown.
No, they stayed on Raw.
Oh, okay. No, I was going to say, I thought they'd been drafted over to SmackDown. I was going to say, because I was like, they're still in the process of doing a storyline with that, but okay, cool, no problems. Just me being stupid.
No, not at all. Not at all. Well, I'm pleased that they're going to finish that story off. But speaking of tag teams, Catty Cat saying better tag teams. SmackDown is the better tag team division in Catty Cat's opinion. You know what? I think I have to agree, because when I looked on the tag team divisions when they were being announced on SmackDown on night one, I thought SmackDown's looking tasty with that tag team division. Looks really, really tasty. Obviously, now that the Usos now confirmed of it as well, it's really strong. Usos, pretty deadly. The Good Brothers. My mind's
Street Profits.
Street Profits.
Street Profits, OC, Hit Row, Usos, Latino World Order, Brawling Brutes, Pretty Deadly. That's a stacked tag team division.
It's a big division. It's a big division, especially when you look on Raw and say, look, yeah, okay, you got Ricochet and Braun Strowman, but how long for? And
they still don't have any titles. It doesn't make sense.
They'll get them. I'm sure they will get them one way or another. But interesting, because I think a title needs to change before Night of Champions, because we know that KO and Sami won't be at that show. So it'll be interesting to see what they'll do and how they'll make a tag team championship available. Maybe they'll be just world tag team champions. I don't know. Maybe Triple H has a big announcement in the week. He seems to be doing the Tony Khan thing of late.
I think they would be they'd be the Universal Tag Team Champions, and then the World ones will be the ones that come over to SmackDown.
That could make sense to do that if they wanted to do that. Eric says here, Liv Morgan, another perfect example. Basically, a jobber in NXT, now former SmackDown champion, tag team champion, tied for the longest time in the Rumble. Absolutely, Eric, you got it nailed down. Doesn't always have to work in NXT for someone, as long as they have a way to connect with the main audience. And Liv Morgan is another fine example as well. And arguably, I see if you agree with this, NXT, could be the number 2 babyface on Raw right now behind Becky Lynch. There's no one else in a way to stop there when it comes to going for that the SmackDown Women's Championship on Raw at present.
Liv Morgan is the epitome of Daniel Bryan, like the whole underdog that has rose to the top. And if you're going by what's reported, it's going to be a very big year for Liv Morgan. So I'm really excited by that. Like, I was super gassed when she won Money in the Bank. Like, no, never expected her to do it. And then to actually cash in on Ronda Rousey, of all people, and win was just such a big thing. It was just a shame that the feud going forward was trash. But yeah, I'm just trying to have a look now quickly. I think Liv, you're looking right. Liv probably is the second biggest babyface at the minute. Although, yeah, because Indi Hartwell's just not. She's not established enough, so yeah, that's actually I'd say she's the number 2 at the minute behind Becky. It's a great shout.
I'd say so. Probably Raquel's number 3 at this particular moment, and hopefully we'll see. Maybe we get the established, like you say. Candice LeRae deserves a good push at some point in WWE, but it just doesn't seem to be quite yet. Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa for Crown Jewel 2023 is a prediction from Ghost Spider 2003. We'll have to wait and see when it gets to Crown Jewel if that would come together. I'm not sure if it will or won't yet, but obviously the break of the bloodline does feel like it will happen. It just depends if Crown Jewel will be in its usual spot this year. Obviously, we've got the summer show at the moment for Night of Champions. Usually it's been in February the last couple of years, but be interesting to see how and when they will do those shows. But C Nation says Pretty Deadly going to SmackDown makes sense because the family sent Pretty Deadly swimming, and that was the perfect way to write them off NXT. It absolutely was. I love the way they wrote them off the show. Again, it works for the characters as well. They just obviously Tony D'Angelo, great character as well. So the people that are being booked in NXT right now, they can make a difference when they come to the main roster. And like I say, Pretty Deadly for me. Their flamboyance can be misunderstood. They're yes boys. They're made in Chelsea. Only way is Essex style can be a bit lost in translation. But I do think that when people start to understand them, they will be red hot property on SmackDown.
I imagine for people that don't watch NXT, they're going to find them highly irritating. And
yes,
that's why they need to be a heel team coming in straight away. They need to establish this, come in as a heel team, give them some time to establish themselves as the heels again, and they'll slowly win over the crowd. They're great, man. Like I said, unless you've watched shows like The Only Way is this is what is it? The Only Way is Essex and what that other Chelsea one. I forget what they're all called. I don't watch them, unfortunately. Sorry to say, but yeah, give them some time, and I think they're going to be massive.
Absolutely, indeed. There, C Nation Tribal Chief Roman Reigns has never faced AJ Styles before. You are correct. It's the big dog that has. It's like I said, we need to run it back. It's been far too long, and now we have the faction warfare. I mean, imagine War Games later this year, the Bloodline versus the OC. I mean, that could be great fun to see that go down.
Just with when they did Mia Yim doing moves on one of the guys last week, I really thought they were going to keep OC and Judgment Day together and like have a 4-on-4, but apparently not. But hey, I'm still up for seeing AJ up against Roman, man. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, absolutely, indeed. There, DWE in the house as well. Dan the Man Williams, City Boy in the house. It says, I feel SmackDown got the better of the card, but Raw had exactly what it needed. Fresh faces to fill 3 hours. The call-ups make sense despite them not having name value. I completely agree with a lot of that, Dan. I really do. For me, it makes an exciting program going forward.
Do you know what the problem was with this draft was that we were so used to seeing them all on both shows. So a lot of the Raw and SmackDown talent just finally being established as a Raw or SmackDown talent really does help it now, because it's a case of we're not going to see these people twice a week. We'll see them once a week, and it's going to a case of when they do something good in a story-wise, it's going to give me a case. And damn, I now have to wait until Raw to see what happens in the next step. I'm not going to get it 4 days later on SmackDown. So that was the thing I found mostly with the draft. It was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, you'll just stay on Raw, you're going to SmackDown. But then when you start looking at some of the people they're bringing in, especially with the NXT ones, I think is the biggest help with this draft was that you saw some of the names come in, and it's just going to revitalize those rosters so much.
Absolutely, and I can't wait to see how it's all going to play out. It's really going to be fun. Make sure we get through the last of the comments before we wrap up the stream today. Probably looking to do about another 10 to 15 minutes tops. Go Spider 2003 says OC Bloodline and Brawling Brutes in War Games, and the Brawling Brutes in there as well. Oh, I tell you, it's going to really be fight night in November. I can't wait. Catty Cat says
that's going to be amazing if they do that.
It would be indeed. The Catty Cat saying can't wait to see Babyface Knight versus Waller or Theory. Absolutely. They need to get the Babyface LA Knight going as well. I think that'd be the trick that can really get LA Knight to the next level, because he's such a great talker. He's organically getting over. Just make the switch. And like you say, there's some natural opponents there that he can be going against that could really be fun going forward. Waller's a great talker. They did the feud in NXT, but to do it now with Waller having so much more experience could be great to see. And we've already talked about the idea of Knight versus Theory earlier in the stream.
He just needs that defining moment where it's like, that's it. Now he's a babyface, and then he'll be off the races with it.
Absolutely, indeed. They're seeing issue with a few comments in now, starting off with Liv Morgan and Raquel Rodriguez. Should have been drafted to SmackDown as Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn were drafted to Raw. Fair point. For me, I was always keen on the idea of Raquel Rodriguez moving to Raw, and I was actually okay with Liv moving to Raw with the way that things have planned out. Like I say, for them two ladies, they are number 2 and number 3 on the lineup to go against Rhea Ripley at this particular moment. And of course, the number 1 usually is saved for the big shows. So there is a chance that Liv and Raquel, once they drop those tag team championships, which I think will be at Night of Champions, I think there's a chance that we could see Money in the Bank, one of them, perhaps SummerSlam, the other one, or perhaps the show after. Have to wait and see how it will play out. But certainly, I think it'll be a bright future for those ladies. But I do see where Nation's coming from when you have champions that can be on both shows. Nation also goes on to say that the guy probably will put into another tag team, sadly. I think he's got a point. I really think he's got a point.
It's not really a bad thing. It's just I'm just glad that they'll have something for her to do, if honest. I'd rather her be in a tag team than not on my TV.
That's a true point. That's a very true point
That's why
indeed
she's
there.
there.
Absolutely is why she's there. It's what we want to see on the TV. That's pretty much it. Trish Stratus should have been a
My
free
fat head's in the way.
agent. Since she's a legend, make her feel like a bigger deal. Totally get where you're coming from, C Nation. Although I was really happy to see that she was involved in the draft. But for me, I didn't want to see free agents. So for me, I'm kind of liking the idea that Trish is committed to one side, because if you want to see that legend, you've got to see her on Monday nights, and I'm enjoying where Becky Lynch and Trish is going at the minute. Obviously, that could even be at Night of Champions, even though it's not a title match. It could be. It feels like the sort of show you'd put it on if it's not going to be SummerSlam.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of. I'm actually praising booking here for WWE. Hopefully, like I said, this is going to be a longer feud than just one match. Hopefully, it's going to be a series of matches, which I think will be good for the women's championship on that side, because it will give Rhea a time to go through a couple of opponents, whoever she's going to go through, whether it be a Liv or Raquel or whoever, establish yourself as more of a dominant champion before you then free up Becky for Becky to then come along and go, do you know what? I think it's about time I take that title off of you.
Absolutely, indeed. There, could you see Trish turning face at one point, say in the future, and her against Rhea could be a match?
It's a possibility, but I don't. I'd almost feel like it'd be a squash match, because obviously Trish isn't like Trish's wrestles once in a blue moon. I don't know if I'd want to see Trish get squashed by Rhea. I don't know. Obviously, they won't book her as a squash match, but hey, I'll take it. If that's what they want to give me, I'll take it. Two great wrestlers. It'll be really good.
Absolutely. I'd be down for the match if they were ever to do it. And there we go from Ghost Spider. Says Bobby Lashley versus Braun Breaker. Prediction there for WrestleMania 40. Oh, that'd be a heck of a match.
Yeah, it just hopefully, but it's like, it just depends on what they do with Bobby Lashley. Hopefully, they keep him away from Austin Theory, unfortunately.
Absolutely, indeed. There, C Nation clarifying, Gable Stevenson was drafted in the 21 draft to Raw. Very true. He hasn't showed up once besides like at WrestleMania. Again, very, very true. Seems like he's probably not going to.
Apparently training for the Olympics for next year.
There you go. Indeed. There, probably will not be showing up anytime soon. No, he wasn't even drafted this time, so I imagine he's probably going to disappear. C Nation says Mustafa Ali needs to go back to NXT. His new gimmick is cringe. I try and look at it from a positively. I've messed that up. I'm not even going to try and redo it. I agree. Needs to go back to NXT. For me, I'd just be down for it, because of the fact that if they're going to use him as a free agent and they can use him as a jobber, he'd be great in NXT, whether it's a face, whether it's a heel. They could reinvent the guy. And to be fair, I mean, we'll talk about Wesley in this stream. Wesley versus Mustafa Ali. Give me that match. I'd be well down for that.
Give me Mustafa Ali versus Dijak. I think there'd be some great story to relive there with their whole failed retribution thing. I think that would be great alone. But yeah, Wesley versus Mustafa Ali, 100%.
Absolutely, indeed. There, Ghost Spider was saying about Seth Freakin Rollins versus Gunther, the World Heavyweight Championship match of WrestleMania 40. Would love to see it. Would love to see it indeed. That would be pretty awesome.
Very good possibility.
Absolutely. Vegeta Lover 92. Hope you're doing well. Thank you for checking out the stream. SmackDown will be more entertaining, and Raw will be longer wrestling matches in the fair. I like that, and because the thing is with that, there's a great show, and that's what makes both shows good as well. Because identity. Something the shows needed was identity, and I think they have gained that from this. Obviously, SmackDown, like we said as well, a lot of factions. There are factions on Raw, but there's a lot more single styles as well. So it just breaks things up. It gives little tweaks of things that are different.
I think there's one key element we've not thought about here, and it's who's writing the shows. Because while that's a good idea, one being the more entertaining and one being the better wrestling, it's a case of, do you remember like the last couple of years where there'd be patches where SmackDown was must see, but Raw was dead, and then it'd go Raw is must see, but SmackDown was dead, and we go through this process. So whether it's if it's the same people writing it, you might not get that. But then again, there's a 70-something-year-old man in charge of the business, so we're probably not going to get that anyway.
We can only hope. We live in hope. We're going to live in hope. It's sad that Karen and Sami will have a short reign because of the Saudi thing. I reckon they'll lose one title potentially, or they'll introduce other tag team titles. It'll be one or the other. But they don't necessarily need them on the show. This World Heavyweight title is the reason for the Night of Champions.
They will unify them, and then they will bring in a new title to SmackDown, I imagine.
Absolutely, indeed. There, Vegeta says Eric is right. Many Did nothing in NXT and are a huge success on the main roster. Absolutely. We have talked about that a bit in depth as well there. Indi Hartwell winning the NXT Women's Championship felt like a good moment for the crowd, but didn't really have any long-term plans for the NXT Women's Championship. Maybe Sean did. But it feels like those who wrote Raw and SmackDown definitely didn't. At least it wasn't kind of a Zack Ryder moment for her where she just kind of lost it like 24 hours later. But at the same time, Indi Hartwell, it did feel like she was a lot more important. She had a great month in the month of April. So to get the call up to come to Raw whenever she does show up now, she feels like a bigger deal. And if that's what you wanted to do, just to give that sort of instant impact just weeks before coming on to try and make a splash with Indi Hartwell on the Raw roster, I think they would have succeeded in doing that. But I do eventually see The Way reuniting, and I think that her and Candice LeRae will be one of those said teams that could go for the Women's Tag Team Championships against a predicted future Tag Team Champions in Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler.
Yeah, I totally believe that's what's going to happen as well. But I think as well, it's a great sort of a thank you, really, because I think Indi's really deserved it. Like, Indi's kind of been there consistently through since Black and Gold days for the last sort of 3, 4, 5 years now, and there's always been in or around the TV production. She's always been there, whether it be part of the way or whatever. So I think that was just a great thing to see. Like, I honestly didn't expect her to win the Women's Championship. It was a case of I would love to see her do it. Don't think it's going to happen. So to see it pay off, I'm really glad with. But yeah, it's just a shame that it is going to be short lived. But like I said, unfortunately, someone has to make these calls, and I think putting her in a position like back in the way again, for how well and how entertaining that was in NXT, it's just going to be good to have some narrative and direction for Johnny as well, because I feel Johnny's stale since coming back, and he's kind of just sort of floated about, and he's been doing all this stuff with Dexter, and it's just not really done anything. So it's going to give them all direction and something to do.
Absolutely. I think The Way is the way forward for them all, because otherwise I could see them all being lost in the shuffle like they have been to this point. Last few comments, then we're going to race through them now to get to the finish. I've got a very early start tomorrow. Vegeta says, I say Tiffany is the plan. I feel that you might be watching on delay, Vegeta, and if so, thank you very much for doing so. Checking out the episode, still getting involved as well. Love to see it. Tiffany, the plan to be the next NXT Women's Champion. C-Nation Dog says that Wallet is the type of guy that can take a lot of losses but stay over, and that's very, very true. It's the beauty of a character. You know when someone has got an it factor, when they can lose matches, stay relevant, when they talk, people listen, and when people don't like you, they want to see you lose. That is a sign that someone is going to make money in that company.
He reminds me of a Miz 2.0. Do you remember when the Miz lost his absolute nut at Daniel Bryan on the Smack Talk, when he turned around and said, "You're a boring wrestler," and he went absolutely crazy at him? I feel Grayson Waller would be exactly the same. I reckon Grayson Waller would be like I say, I think he's going to do fantastic, and I can't wait to see what he's going to do.
Absolutely. He irritates me when I watch him, and I think that shows that the guy is doing his job perfectly. So, yeah, I agree with you. I think he needs that moment, and when he gets that moment, I genuinely feel like he could literally go straight to the moon. Literally, there's the potential.
He is essentially, he's going to bring the Waller effect to SmackDown, which is going to be the equivalent of the Miz's show. That's exactly what he is Miz 2.0.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think they've found a younger version of it that could potentially do what Miz does and actually get to the top doing it as well. Grayson wins the US title in his debut, like a KO. Fantastic. If that's a strong prediction there. Personally, don't see it myself, Eric, but do you know what? I'm open-minded to the idea of it. Grayson Waller, obviously, we predict big things.
Yeah, I'd be up for seeing it. I just think the heeled face dynamic doesn't work at this current minute. I think Waller needs to come in as a heel, and with Theory being a heel, I just don't think it'll work in a minute.
Absolutely. C-Nation says, I really think Bianca Belair should have stayed on Raw. For me, I'm not got a problem with her changing shows. Just the championship thing is winding me up. Yeah. So, yeah, as we said earlier in the video, I don't know if you were around then at that point, C-Nation, we want to see the World's Women's Championship, and we want to see the World's Universal Women's Championship, or Women's Universal Championship brought in. That way, it's not going to affect them every time they switch shows, and they can have proper reigns. It's time to ditch the Raw and SmackDown on those titles. Bad Bunny versus Damien Priest or Bianca Belair versus Io Sky will steal the show at Backlash, says Ghost Spider, and perfect time for that plug there. At 10 p.m. UK time, 5 p.m. Eastern, will be predictions tomorrow for Backlash. The stream is already set up, so make sure to turn notifications on. You will not miss a thing. Sination also says Gunther needs to become the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion before looking at the World Heavyweight Championship. Totally agree. I think that we could still be looking at both in this calendar year.
Yeah, they need to. They just need to make sure whoever takes that title from Gunther has to be built the right way, because I don't want him losing it in a dodgy roll up to Baron Corbin or someone like that. Do you know what I mean? It has to be, like I said earlier, Shinsuke Nakamura seems like a great option for someone to take that off of him.
Absolutely, indeed. There, maybe Vegeta isn't watching on today. Says Triple H is in charge there, unless we've been talking about Vince a couple of times in this stream. But yeah, I mean, Triple H is meant to be in charge. Meant to be is probably the key word.
Doesn't have the final word, unfortunately, though.
No, unfortunately not. Sinister says every champion has to be defended at Night of Champions, right? That's how it was in the past. I mean, it's how it was in the past, but I think that the reason they've changed it from King and Queen of the Ring to Night of Champions is for this World Heavyweight Championship. That is the key ingredient of what's selling this show. Roman could turn up, but with this World Heavyweight Championship, Roman doesn't need to turn up. So I've got a funny feeling that we will see some championships on the line. I don't think we'll see all. The only way that we'll see all is if Sami and KO lose their championships, and then every title can be potentially on the line. But Sinishin goes on to add a great point that Roman Reigns does have his 1K celebration on the night of Night of Champions, and that is a reason to call it that. And I totally agree. There's another reason why you could call it that. If Roman is going to be in the house as well, it would have been a great way to put the fear factor if he would lose it on 1,000 days straight. But unfortunately, now him and Cody are on different shows. My prediction went straight down the toilet. Ghost Spider says Randy Orton versus Cody Rhodes at SummerSlam. If Randy is fit, would love to see it, but Randy, of course, still out with a long-term injury, and I keep hearing mixed things that he may not be back for the entire of 2023. Same, we've heard that about Robert Roode, sadly, as well. Looks like Bron Breakker is staying in NXT a bit longer. I think at least until NXT Battleground. It feels like Bron Breakker is going to have to be patient for his call-up, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think if you're going to see another call-up now, I'd probably say at least Survivor Series. I think halfway through the calendar year, just to then come back round. Just because obviously I don't think otherwise after that you're not going to see anything until next year when they do the draft again.
Absolutely. I think he'll get a call-up before the draft next year. I mean, NXT Battleground, I reckon, will be his rematch with Carmelo Hayes. After that, I think they'll give him a couple of big wins just to get him back on track, and then I think they'll give him a call-up. Like you say, I think for me, I'm going to go by SummerSlam. I'm going to say will be the time. Roman's having a celebration that night of Champions. He certainly will be. Will it be on our TV sets, though? That's the big question. Will it be on Peacock or will it not? C Nation says, I feel bad for Shawn Michaels. He's going to have to build a new tag team division among some other divisions at this rate as well, the amount of talent he's lost. But
that women's division is thin as well because half of them are injured as well. So he's got some work there.
Absolutely, he's going to have to build from the ground up. But Sean's done it before. I've got no doubt he will do it again. Sinishan says the Miz has lost the celebrities, but somehow is still able to have a WWE title reign in 2021. Facts, facts, and facts. And again, Miz is no one knows who can do anything on a show. It doesn't hurt him. Makes no sense, though. Do you generally want your longest reigning Raw Women's Champion Bianca to not have her reign ended by someone low? Plus, they'll probably swap the titles again. Exactly, 100% correct. This is something we are entirely against. We prefer to drop the championship. We don't really want to swap, although Bianca versus Rhea with the swap could be fascinating as a segment. Like I said, the renaming the championships would be better. And
I think I was going to say, I think you'll probably find that that's going to be a build for their eventual match when it happens. That's going to be the start of it, is when these titles have to be swapped over, if they still are champions by the time they do it.
I imagine so. I reckon WrestleMania 40 is the destination for that match. Oscar was believable to beat Bianca Belair, but that is ruined now. I can see Rhea Ripley beating Bianca Belair to become the undisputed WWE Women's Champion. I wouldn't be against that idea. I think that certainly would be something that could possibly happen.
Yeah, I mean, I hope not, because then we go back to having one champion again. But I like the idea of it, though.
Absolutely there. The Judgment Day should dethrone Kevin Owens and Sami. And that's a tag team title match I'd really like to see, actually, now that you mentioned the Ghost Spider. Liking that suggestion.
It's not a bad shot. It just depends on who the tag team is. I mean, I would personally, hopefully it's not Finn. I'd like to see Finn be involved in this World Heavyweight Championship scene going forward.
I've got nothing against Prison Dom being a tag team champion. I think.
Yeah. That's what I mean. I just don't want Finn. I don't want Finn in that scene. I want Finn in that world title scene.
Absolutely. Even for me, any of the three I'd be okay with, but I totally understand with Finn running back, getting towards that main event area. He's certainly one of those that could be a big deal. Away from WWE, can you see Darby beating MJF at the AEW pay-per-view? Short answer for me, it's no.
No, MJF, unfortunately. No, Darby's not going to do it at the minute.
I can see MJF holding the title for the entire calendar year at the minute.
MJF is going to hold it until at least All In.
Interesting. C Nation says Paul Heyman said Roman Reigns would go for the World Heavyweight Championship if he could, but he can't because on SmackDown that title is on Raw. Completely correct, and that's fingers crossed. It means it's at least WrestleMania 40 before Roman could do it if he was to win the Royal Rumble. Let's hope he doesn't. C Nation says, do you count Seth Rollins as a WrestleMania main eventer? I do. He cashed in the main event match, and it was still in the main event match. Yeah, because you have to be in the match to win the title. So I would agree with C Nation.
I would still say he was a main eventer, even though he's never officially been at the start of a main event match. I'd still say he is due a main event.
Yeah, he's due a main event that's been built for 4 months. He's due that he hasn't had.
He's due a main event that's been built for years. Let's be fair.
To be fair, that could be. I don't know if I've seen Seth and Roman's names mentioned, but I don't know if they've been paired together. But that's a match at a WrestleMania that should be a main event somewhere. If John Cena doesn't show up at SummerSlam, I want to see AJ Styles versus Logan Paul. Interesting match there. Go Spider, like that. That's outside the box.
Don't get me wrong. It could be entertaining as anything. It's just a case of he's got to have purpose. If they've got purpose, I'm all for it.
The thing is, like you said, that I mean, in ring it's going to be fantastic. Is AJ good enough on the mic to carry that through? I guess it's probably the question mark with it. But in ring, I mean, that would be a very good match. There's no argument in that.
I think for me with Logan is you've got to have someone who's just as big of a character. So for me, if you was to have, say, for instance, LA Knight versus Logan Paul,
and
you need a character. You need a character balance with them too. But don't get me wrong, AJ Styles could do it absolutely.
Could you see, because I mentioned Grayson Waller a couple of times, can you see Grayson Waller and Logan Paul being buddies at some point in this next calendar year?
Absolutely. That's a future tag team run there. 100%. I'd be all for that. That's great.
Could be interesting if they did that. Signature says it should be Finn Balor and Damian Priest versus Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn because Finn Balor and Kevin Owens have history. Dominic Mysterio could have the mid-card belt. Fair. We all have our opinions on that. I mean, that's fair. Io could beat Bianca and just declare herself separate from Bayley and Dakota and stay on Raw. Interesting. Interesting. I mean, the thing is as well, they mentioned this when Triple H came on the start of SmackDown. Probably the last big talking point before we wrap it up is that Triple H was in the 2004 draft where he was drafted to SmackDown, but was never on SmackDown because they did a trade where he went over for 3 superstars and went back to Raw. Could you see something like that happen where the Raw Women's Championship ends up back on Raw and the SmackDown Women's Championship actually ends up on SmackDown without a swap?
I think you're more like I think the bigger possibility would be seeing Io win it, going back to Raw, and Zelina winning the SmackDown title and staying on SmackDown. I think that's a bigger possibility than that again. It's the problem you have with that dynamic is who do you trade? Because we've just had this whole discussion for the last 1 hour and 40 minutes. The rosters are pretty balanced, and I don't really want to spoil it, if I'm honest. I think it's pretty good the way it is. So if you were going to do that, hey, there's 7 or 8 free agents there you could probably do it with, to be honest.
That's true. That's true. We get them free agents in. They can stick around. That's what we'll do. Scurswallow says, I hate MJF because he's annoying. I mean, he's doing his job, let's be fair. And that's one of the reasons I love him, because he's annoying. Sination says, Seth Rollins said his dream is to main event WrestleMania, but that dream has already been accomplished. And I think that's the difference, though, for Seth. I think he wants that where, you know, you've won the Royal Rumble or you're doing that and you've got the build to it. Everything's around you rather than like you had a briefcase, you cashed it in, you hijacked someone's main event. I think that's kind of what it is. It was the hijack and the heist of the century rather than being this was my moment. It was meant to be my moment. I think that's what Seth wants. But I do agree with C Nation. He has been in the main event of WrestleMania.
Yeah, I think you got screwed over when he won the Rumble and had to face Brock in the first match of the night. I think that was a bit of a bump. But yeah, I think if you're a professional wrestler, with WrestleMania being WrestleMania, the dream is to main event at WrestleMania. Like, you are on that card, not that there's a possibility that you're going to cash in a contract. Is a case of you, like, when you look at the poster, it's your face, like, dead center in the middle of that poster saying, I'm headlining this pay-per-view.
Absolutely, indeed. There, C Nation says almost needs some big wins on pay-per-views, not just Raw. It feels like he always loses the big one. It's a very good point.
Very
Then we've
true.
been asked the question as well. Do we think he'll win against Seth Rollins? Daz, I'm going to answer that question tomorrow because I'm still not sure yet. Me and Steve are back for our Backlash predictions tomorrow, so we'll answer that question for you there and then if you don't mind. C Nation says Damage Control's booking has been messy. They just need to break up. The only issue is Dakota Kai. She doesn't have long-term plans. She might have long-term plans. We just don't know about them. But we all have the same fear, and that's one thing we will stick with there. But we definitely agree it's been messy. I'm going to race through these last couple of comments, Steve, if you don't mind. C Nation says I will never like MJF, but that's good. He's a good heel. Exactly. Rhea traded for AJ and the OC. I'm going to get your take on that, though. That's an interesting idea. Imagine Judgment Day swapped with the OC.
I can't see them separating the Judgment Day. They've just released, which by the way I've ordered because it's a fantastic T-shirt. Is Rhea is my mummy, and it's I'll tell you what, I cannot wait for it to turn. I saw it today. I saw it on Raw, so Don wearing it. I went, that's mine. I have to have that T-shirt. They cannot split them two up at the minute. They're doing too good work. You can't separate them.
Coming to a podcast near you, you can see NXT in that T-shirt. It's coming, ladies and gents. Sedition says Seth Freakin Rollins versus Gunther for the World Heavyweight title, not one of WrestleMania. Take my money. That would be an awesome match. So it would be an awesome match. We definitely are looking forward to the idea whenever we get that match. Ghostwriter says, personally, I want to see Bronson Reed win at Backlash, but I don't see it happening anymore. It seems less likely. I will say that now that, of course, he's the only one that's staying on Raw. And the last comment then of the stream, second to last comment, Bobby Lashley should win the United States Championship at Backlash because SmackDown needs a top babyface fighting champion. There's a good argument made there. Good argument made there. And Sination of the last one who agrees there that should happen. I thought it would be Bronson Reed, but he was drafted to Raw. The title's on SmackDown. We need babyface singles champions again. Absolutely. And Vegeta here says then Rhea and the Judgment Day for the OC and some other people. I mean, obviously, trades can happen. We're not saying it wouldn't happen. But NXT, I don't think you're going to change his opinion. He wants to keep things as they are. But I tell you what, I wouldn't change the way things are because you lot have been awesome today with your comments. Thank you, everyone that's been getting involved with this stream. It's been a fantastic pleasure to be here for the last hour and 45 minutes discussing the WWE Draft in full, giving the full results for everybody. Obviously, giving our opinion who won the WWE Draft, what feuds do we want to see, answering your questions. It's been a fun time. And overall, was the draft good or bad? Going to say very quickly, I think the draft has been done very, very well this year. I think this is probably the best draft they've done in years. Love the way that they actually did it as well, with the idea of having these legends coming out and just, giving their picks and stuff like that. I thought was quite a nice little touch to it as well. The only thing I would just say to improve it is just to give maybe a sentence sometimes of why a pick is given in certain places. Because when you think Austin Theory was picked before Seth Rollins, there has to be a reason for it, why they didn't go for Seth Rollins.
Yeah.
So
like my logic was whenever you draft them, you want champions on your brand. So why aren't the champions all being drafted first? They should be priority drafting these champions. I can never understand why your US champion isn't going in the first round; he's going in the second round. It never makes sense to me.
No, absolutely, indeed. There, so that's where it comes down to. But overall, great draft, really fun time. I bring up these last two comments. Then I guess technically, Bianca can say she never lost the Raw Women's title. Probably looking that way at this point, unless she does a Backlash. So yeah, same as Becky. And Dominic Mysterio is the top heel on Raw. Feels like he's getting booed every single time. And you know what? It's such fun to see. Thank you everyone that's been watching. Make sure to hit the like button, share with a friend as well, subscribe to SCW if you are new here as well. Drop a comment after this video has gone off as well, just to interact as well. So I always like talking wrestling, so if you guys want to get involved as well after the videos, feel free to do so. I'm happy to chat with you as well down there. I want to say a big thank you as well to NXT. It's been a pleasure talking with you all about draft day, and I can hopefully bring you back for Backlash tomorrow.
I'll be here, don't worry. I'm part of the furniture now. I'm the bad smell that you can't get rid of.
we wouldn't want to get rid of you, honestly. It's always a pleasure to talk wrestling with you. It's always a fun time. And got to say to everyone once again, thank you all for watching. Say Backlash, the predictions will be tomorrow. That is 10 p.m. UK. It'll be 5 p.m. Eastern. And on Friday will be a special Backlash Q&A as well, dedicated to the show. Looking to have Astrid Bizarro coming back onto the channel. Obviously, be really fun to talk about the idea of wrestling. The WWE is going to be in Puerto Rico again. It's going to be amazing to see and talk to her about that on Friday. So get involved with your questions on that show as well. But that's all from us anyway. Thank you for watching. As always, look after yourselves and each other. If you've not seen the results and reaction in much more depth from me of night 2 of the draft, go and check that video out now. It is the main one that's featured on the start of the channel. Look after yourselves and each other. See you next time. Take care and thanks for watching.